Sometimes they don't come back because they miss you. They come back because they can't find you where they left you. That one line, my friends, might sting a little, but it's the truth. It's not your love that pulled them back in. It wasn't the sweet messages, the late-night confessions, or the way you made yourself smaller just to keep the peace. It wasn't your patience, it was your absence. And not just physical absence, energetic, emotional, spiritual. You see, people don't always chase what's available. They chase what's missing when it's finally done proving itself. Stay with me, because this might flip your entire perspective on why they really came back. Before we dive in, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe. We're not here for fantasy, we're here for freedom. Real, raw, unfiltered truth. The kind that doesn't just heal you, it changes how you walk through life. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a flame, a warm, soft, steady flame. You've been burning patiently for someone lost in the cold. They keep walking in and out, warming their hands, then disappearing, never staying long enough to appreciate the heat, only long enough to avoid freezing. And every time they leave, you wait, you burn, you hope, until one day, you don't. One day, you stop trying to stay lit for someone who never brings wood to the fire. One day, you pull back your flame, and suddenly, they're cold for real. That's when they remember what it felt like to be warm. Here's the thing, my friends. They didn't come back because you begged. They didn't come back because you sent the perfect message or proved you were the one. They came back because your energy went silent. You stopped showing up. You stopped dancing for someone who refused to take the floor. You stopped being their emotional charger. And that silence, that's what spoke. That's what echoed. That's what burned. Because the most unforgettable sound in the world is the sound of someone you once took for granted, suddenly going quiet. Let's break the biggest lie right now. If you love them hard enough, they'll come back. Nope. That's emotional blackmail dressed in hope. Real love doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't break itself trying to fix someone else's fear of connection. As the Stoics say, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. You don't bring someone back by gripping harder. You bring them back, if they're meant to return, by finally letting go. Not with spite, not with games, but with calm, confident detachment. And let's not forget the funny part of all this. The moment you stop checking your phone, boom, they text. The moment you start loving your own company, boom, they want to see you. The moment you're actually done for real, suddenly they're not. It's like the universe plays this twisted game of irony, right? But the real game changer isn't that they came back. It's that you're not the same person anymore. That's what they feel. That's what they didn't expect. So if they've come back, don't fall into the old trap. Don't light that flame up too quick. Make sure they're not just running from the cold. Make sure they're ready to stay in the warmth. And more importantly, make sure you know your worth now. Because your silence wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, full of boundaries, full of you coming back to you. Say it with me in the comments right now. I choose peace. Let that be your anchor, your compass, your line in the sand. Hit that like button if this truth slapped you back into alignment. Subscribe if you're ready for more of this, because we're not done. Stay with me, because now we're going even deeper into the moment they came back and why it happened the moment you stopped waiting. Number 1. They didn't return because you waited. They returned because you shifted. It wasn't the silence that made them come back. It was what they felt in your silence, the absence of your need. Let's hit this one hard, my friends. Because this lie has kept too many of you stuck, waiting by the phone, checking that story, overthinking every second of their distance like it was some puzzle you were meant to solve. Let's destroy it today. They didn't come back because you waited. They came back because you finally stopped waiting. That's the truth that hurts, but heals. Imagine this. You're standing at a train station, waiting for a train that keeps delaying. Every announcement says, just a little longer. And so you wait. You pace. You pray. You start rearranging your life just to stay close to the platform. People pass you by. Opportunities pass. You start becoming someone who lives at the edge of hope and the pit of anxiety. But one day, something in you snaps. Not in bitterness, not in rage, but in clarity. You walk away, you leave the station, and guess what? That train finally pulls in. But now, you're not there, and that changes everything. Suddenly, the train is delayed. But for you, now let's go deeper. You might be asking, but didn't they see I was trying? Didn't they notice I cared? Yes, they saw it, they noticed it, but that wasn't what they needed. And more importantly, it wasn't what worked. Because people with avoidant or emotionally unavailable tendencies, they don't move toward intensity. They don't come closer when you explain more, try harder, cry louder. They back away, not because you're unworthy, but because their nervous system reads emotional urgency as danger, not love. So what changed? You did, not by begging, not by proving, but by pulling your energy back. You stopped feeding the connection with your desperation. You stopped carrying both ends of the emotional rope. You stopped making them the center of your universe. And that shift, it wasn't loud, but it was powerful. It rewired the dynamic. Let me tell you why it's so hard to do that. Because society teaches you, especially those with big hearts, that love means endurance, that the one who waits longest wins, that staying available makes you loyal, that patience will pay off. But folks, that's not love. That's emotional gambling. And the house always wins, unless you flip the game. Let's break it down. When you were chasing them, texting first, explaining your worth, trying to stay calm through their silence, they were in control. You were emotionally invested. You were readable, predictable, safe for them, but draining for you. So when you stopped, the rhythm broke. When you no longer responded the way they expected, their emotional comfort zone cracked. And that discomfort, that's when they started thinking, feeling, regretting, and returning. Not because they missed the old dynamic, but because they felt the loss of your energy. That constant wave of emotional effort they used to take for granted, gone. That's what made them come back. Not your love letters, not your tears, but your emotional absence. You weren't standing there anymore, and they felt it. Stoic philosophy teaches this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't control who comes back, but you can control who you become in their absence. And when you shift from proving your worth to protecting your peace, people notice, people feel that. Especially those who once fed off your overextension. I know what you might be thinking right now, but what if they never came back? And that's the fear that keeps you stuck. That's the fear that lies to you and says, if I stop trying, I'll lose them forever. But let me ask you this. What exactly were you holding on to? A one-sided connection? A role where your needs were muted? A space where your love was measured by how much you could tolerate? That's not love. That's self-abandonment dressed up in hope. And here's what's wild. The moment you stop waiting is the moment you start reclaiming, not just your time, but your identity, your worth, your peace, your purpose. And when they feel that you've shifted, not faking it, not using silence as a tactic, but truly shifted, that's when their world tilts. That's when they start wondering, what if I lost something real? But that's not your question to answer anymore. That's theirs to sit with. So here's your truth. You didn't win because they came back. You won because you stopped breaking yourself to be chosen. And from that space, you became magnetic, not needy, not reactive, but grounded, calm, unavailable to emotional crumbs. Say it out loud in the comments if you're ready to stand in that truth. I choose my peace. Say it so your past self hears it. Say it so the world around you feels it. Say it because the version of you who kept waiting deserves to see how far you've come. Number 2, your emotional absence spoke louder than their emotional distance. Sometimes the loudest scream is no sound at all, just the echo of a door that didn't slam but never reopened. There's a moment people never talk about, not in movies, not in therapy, not even in those late-night teary conversations with friends. It's the moment when you go quiet, not out of pride, not out of anger, but because your soul is finally exhausted. That's the silence that rattles bones, the kind that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't perform. It just is. And that's the silence they weren't ready for. Because up until then, they were used to something else. They were used to your presence being predictable, your love being unconditional, your energy being always there, like the sun rising, even after a storm. You texted first. You held the emotional rope, even when they dropped it. You were the bridge, the peacekeeper, the emotional anchor. But then something inside you shifted. Not with drama, not with fireworks, just a quiet, solid, grounded withdrawal. And that emotional absence, that spoke louder than any message you ever sent. You have to understand, people don't hear words when they're emotionally disconnected. They don't feel love when they're running from their own. What they feel is pressure. What they interpret is intensity. And when you're constantly present, trying to patch the cracks, they don't feel what they're risking. They only feel the weight of being needed. But when that energy pulls back, suddenly they feel the space. And that space, that's where regret is born. That's where they start to realize, wait, what happened? Here's the metaphor for it. Imagine someone blowing up a balloon. You're the balloon. And every breath they give you, every piece of affection, time, attention, you expand with hope. But when they stop, you don't deflate instantly. No, you hover there, full, floating, holding on to every ounce of what they gave you, hoping they'll come back and keep filling. But when it becomes clear they won't, you don't pop, you don't scream, you don't explode, you just float away. And that floating away, that's what they didn't expect. Because now they can't reach you like before. Now they have to feel the absence of your presence. And that feeling, it's suffocating for them. You see, most people expect a reaction. That's how emotional games are played. They pull away and wait. They wait for your panic, your tears, your questions, because that gives them control. That tells them they still matter, that they still affect you. And maybe at first they got it. Maybe at first you gave them exactly what they wanted, responses, reactions, reasons. But then, nothing. And not the cold, bitter kind. Not the passive-aggressive silence that hopes to punish. No, it was the kind of silence that says, I'm done participating in something that keeps me empty. That silence isn't a game. It's a graduation. It's the moment you emotionally unplug, not to teach them a lesson, but to stop being the lesson. And when that happened, your energy became a mystery again. You were no longer the open book. You were the one with a closed chapter. And that's when they started to flip pages, trying to figure out what changed. People don't regret what they had when it's still around. They regret it when it's gone, when it no longer waits, when it no longer explains, when it no longer gives them the comfort of knowing you'll always be there. And that's the twist. Your silence wasn't empty. It was full of your growth. It was full of the boundaries they never thought you'd build. It was full of the version of you they didn't believe could exist. The version that finally said, "I love you, but I love myself more." Let me tell you why that silence hits harder than any goodbye. Because most people don't expect you to actually leave. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. They think they can always come back to the version of you that was holding the door open, heart in hand, waiting for the apology. But this time, the door didn't slam. It just stopped being open. And that confused them, that haunted them, that made them come back. Not because you asked, not because you begged, but because the tether snapped without noise. You stopped proving, you stopped explaining, and your absence became undeniable. The Stoics would call this the moment of self-alignment. You didn't just stop reaching out, you stopped needing to. Your energy no longer moved toward what hurt you. And that stillness, that was the power, that was the shift, and they felt it. This is why it's hard. Because when you love someone deeply, silence feels like betrayal. It feels like abandonment. It feels like giving up. But there's a difference between giving up and letting go. Giving up is saying, "I'm not worth it." Letting go is saying, "This doesn't serve me anymore." And when you let go with grace, not bitterness, that's the silence they can't unhear. They don't miss the noise, they miss the stability, the care, the emotional safety they once ignored. They don't come back because your words finally broke through. They come back because your silence finally reached them, where your words never could. Write this down in your comments if you feel this in your bones. My silence holds power. Not silence from fear, not silence to manipulate, but silence as a boundary, silence as self-respect. That kind of silence is louder than any scream, clearer than any explanation, and more healing than any apology you never got. And here's the truth, my friends. They came back not because you were always there, but because you finally weren't. And now, as they knock on a door they never thought would close, you get to decide. Are you opening it out of habit, or are you finally living in a house built on peace? Stay with me, because next we're diving into how your peace, not your pain, is what made you irresistible, and why stillness, not struggle, is the real signal of strength they didn't expect. Number 3. You weren't a safe place before, but peace turned you into one. They didn't come back because you made noise. They came back because you made peace, and that peace didn't need them to stay alive. Let's crack this one wide open, folks, because this part right here, it stings a little. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because they didn't feel safe. Not physically, not logically, but emotionally. And that doesn't mean you were dangerous. It means your love was too intense for someone who was raised to flinch at closeness. Your love was real, but to someone who never learned how to handle emotional warmth, it felt like fire. And they ran, not because you were wrong for loving deeply, but because they weren't ready to hold something that didn't come with distance. Now here's where it gets powerful. You spent so long trying to prove that you were a safe space. You texted first. You reassured them. You softened every time they pulled away. You walked on eggshells around their discomfort. You made yourself small just so they wouldn't feel smothered. You convinced yourself that if you could just love them calmly enough, gently enough, consistently enough, they'd eventually see you as home. But love that comes with fear never registers as safety. It registers as pressure. Let me give you a metaphor for this. Picture someone who's been underwater too long. They finally come up for air, but the sun is too bright, the sound too loud, the world too alive. They panic, not because the air is wrong, but because they've been in darkness too long to breathe normally. That's what it's like for emotionally avoidant people. Your consistency, your clarity, your care, it wasn't too much, But to someone drowning in emotional shutdown, it felt overwhelming. And their instinct, retreat. So what changed? Why did they come back? Let's get brutally honest. It wasn't your patience. It wasn't your good heart. It wasn't your loyalty. It was your peace. Not the fake peace where you say nothing but boil inside. Not the strategic silence meant to lure them in. No, the real kind. The peace that doesn't wait. The peace that doesn't punish. The peace that says, I am safe, with or without you. You stopped trying to fix things. You stopped trying to manage their triggers. You stopped trying to decode their every word. You just let go. Not with bitterness, but with grace. And that energy, that's the one thing they didn't expect. Because most people try harder. Most people plead. Most people lash out when they feel abandoned. But you didn't do any of that. You did the one thing that hits harder than anger. You stayed calm. That's what made you safe. Because here's the part they never tell you. Avoidant types don't come back to emotional chaos. They come back to emotional safety. Not safety that bends to their needs, but safety that doesn't demand. Not the safety of control, but the safety of presence. And when you stopped fighting, when you stopped performing, when you stopped orbiting around their silence, they didn't feel attacked anymore. They felt space. And ironically, that's what gave them room to feel anything at all. Let's get real for a second. You were never unsafe. You were just emotionally available. You had needs, you had feelings, you had expectations, and that scared them, not because they were wrong, but because they've never been taught that love can be stable and still. What you offered was emotional intimacy. What they were used to was emotional distance. So when you finally aligned with your own peace, that's when your energy became magnetic, not because you were chasing, but because you stopped needing. They didn't come back because they wanted to fix what they broke. They came back because you became someone who didn't need fixing, someone who wasn't asking for an apology, someone who wasn't holding resentment like a weapon. You became a space of emotional clarity. And when someone's been living in internal noise for years, that clarity becomes addictive. Let me say this to you with love, but with force. You weren't the problem. Their wiring was. But you made it your job to fix the connection. You thought love meant sacrifice. You believed that if you just held on long enough, they'd come around. But love isn't about convincing someone to stay. It's about being so at peace with yourself that the wrong people don't feel like loss anymore. You became safe the day you stopped begging for reassurance. You became safe the day you stopped arguing your value. You became safe the moment you realized that silence doesn't have to mean punishment. It can mean peace. It can mean, I love you, but I love me more. That's the kind of emotional safety that can't be faked. It can only be felt. So when they returned, they weren't just checking in. They were checking the energy. They were seeing if the emotional storm they once avoided had turned into calm waters. And this time, it had. But now, you're different. You're no longer burning yourself to keep someone else warm. You're no longer the emotional airbag cushioning every crash they cause. You've become your own home, and that's what drew them back. But this time, the question isn't why they came back. It's whether you still want to be the same person they used to run from. Because now you're someone new. Now you've got emotional gravity, stillness, strength. Say it with me in the comments if you're stepping into that version of yourself. My peace is powerful. That's your affirmation. That's your truth. That's your new identity. You weren't a safe place before because you were still trying to be chosen. But now you're a safe place because you chose yourself. And in a world that's loud, chaotic, reactive, that kind of peace becomes unforgettable. Stay with me, because next, we're going to unpack the moment everything cracked. the exact shift that shattered the emotional pattern, the moment you finally became unavailable for old games. And trust me, that's when the story really begins. Number 4, when you chose you, it shattered the emotional dynamic. The moment you chose yourself wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of their confusion. Let's get real about something most people aren't ready to say out loud. For the longest time, you were the one bending over backwards, bending your boundaries, bending your truth just to keep the connection from snapping. You became the flexible one in a one-sided emotional tug-of-war. They pulled away and you pulled in. They needed space and you gave it, even when it hurt. They wanted closeness, but only on their terms. And you were available. Always emotionally available, always hoping that if you just held on tight enough, they'd finally choose you back. But then something inside you snapped, quietly. There was no dramatic exit, no grand statement, just a silent, powerful shift in the atmosphere. You didn't scream. You didn't announce your worth like it was a debate. You just chose you, and that moment, that's when the game flipped. See, here's the truth about emotional dynamics. They only work as long as both people keep playing their roles. You were the giver, the stabilizer, the consistent one. They were the unpredictable, the distancer, the one who dictated the rhythm. And it worked for them. It worked because they always knew how you'd respond. You were their emotional certainty. But when you chose you, when you stepped off that seesaw, the whole thing collapsed. The emotional gravity changed. Imagine a scale perfectly balanced by imbalance, one side always giving, one side always taking. Now imagine one day the giving stops, not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because it's draining. Suddenly, the other side crashes. That's exactly what happened when your energy pulled back. You were no longer the one over-functioning in an under-nurtured connection. You became the one who said, "This is costing me too much." And don't mistake this shift for bitterness. This wasn't a "let me hurt you like you hurt me" move. This was liberation. This was a quiet revolution inside your soul that said, "I am not a placeholder, I'm a person, and I'm done shrinking just to keep this from falling apart." They didn't expect it. They thought you'd always be there, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, because you always were. That's the part that confused them, because for people who operate from avoidance, from fear, from emotional shutdown, they rely on you being consistent even when they're not. And when you finally weren't, that shook them. And let's talk about what you felt in that moment. Fear, guilt, doubt, all of it. That's the price of breaking a pattern. Because choosing you after a lifetime of choosing them doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like betrayal of the version of you that never stopped trying. But it's not betrayal, it's becoming. It's choosing the harder road that leads to healing instead of walking in circles that only lead to more heartbreak. Choosing yourself looked like silence, looked like boundaries, looked like not responding to the same empty gestures that used to pull you back in. It looked like watching your phone light up and not being emotionally available anymore. It looked like walking away, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself more. That choice didn't just shake the dynamic, it shattered the illusion that they were in control, that they could always pull you back in with a breadcrumb, that they could disappear and reappear and you'd still be waiting. That illusion died the moment you didn't reach back. You see, people often come back not because they've changed, but because you have. Because the emotional system they were comfortable manipulating no longer responds. Because the person who used to crave their validation now stands in their own. That's the shock. That's the shift. That's the moment they feel your absence like a weight they never expected to carry. And You became untouchable, not because you hardened, but because you healed, because you chose self-respect over recycled pain, because you stopped chasing someone who couldn't even meet you halfway. And let's be honest, it wasn't easy. You second-guessed. You missed them. You replayed the moments that felt real. You wondered if you were being too harsh, but deep down, you knew. You knew that continuing to stay in that dynamic meant losing pieces of yourself, one boundary at a time. So you did the hardest thing of all. You stopped participating. That silence, it wasn't a tactic, it was a transformation. It said, this version of me, the one who overgives, overextends, overfeels for people who underdeliver, is retiring. You didn't abandon them. You simply stopped abandoning yourself. And that's what shattered the dynamic. Not your anger, not your distance, but your evolution. They came back not because you guilted them, but because your growth became undeniable, because your peace made more noise than all your old pleas for attention, because when they looked for the old pattern, it wasn't there anymore, just space, space where your need used to live, space where your chasing used to echo, space filled now with stillness, strength, and standards. Say it with me in the comments if you've felt this shift inside. I choose me now. That's not selfish. That's sacred. That's how the old version of you dies and the real you is born. They didn't come back because they loved you more. They came back because you stopped loving yourself less. Because your decision to rise, quietly, gracefully, broke the dynamic they were surviving in. And now you're no longer playing that old game. Stay with me, because next we're diving into how they felt your energy shift, and how that confusion became the very reason they couldn't stay away. You won't want to miss what's coming. Number 5, they felt your energy pull back, and that changed everything. It's not always your words that hit them. Sometimes it's your silence when they expected your loyalty to speak. There's something most people don't understand about energy. You don't have to say a word for someone to feel that you've changed. You don't need to send a final message or make a grand announcement, because energy doesn't lie. And when you pulled yours back, subtly, quietly, without a scene, they felt it. Not immediately, but over time, it crept into their awareness like a light that suddenly stopped shining in the background. The warmth was gone, the predictability vanished, and that shift? That's when it started eating at them. See, when someone is used to you showing up no matter what, texting first, checking in, giving them the benefit of the doubt, they build a mental model around it. They expect you to stay consistent even when they don't. Your emotional presence becomes a given. And when you've got a good heart, you make excuses for their inconsistency. You tell yourself they're just scared, they're overwhelmed, they need time. And maybe that's true. But what's also true, you were being drained by a one-way connection that fed off your certainty and gave you crumbs in return. So what happens when the certainty disappears? At first, nothing. At least on the surface. They think it's just a phase. Maybe you're just upset. Maybe you'll come around. They've seen you pull back before, but you always came back, didn't you? That was the pattern. That was the dance. But this time the music stopped, and you didn't press play again. And that is when the panic starts to creep in. Not in a dramatic way, not in the way movies show it, but in the stillness, the void. That wait a minute feeling when they realize you're not checking anymore. You're not reacting. You're not available in the way they're used to. Your energy, which used to orbit them like gravity, is now gone. And without it, they're weightless, spinning, off balance. They don't know why they feel it. They just do. Because people don't always register your presence consciously, but they absolutely register your absence. It's like background music in a cafe. You don't notice it until it stops, and then the silence feels deafening. Here's the metaphor. Imagine someone walking on a bridge every day. That bridge has always been there, strong, stable, supportive. They cross it without thinking, maybe even take it for granted. But one day, the bridge is just gone. No warning, no collapse, just removed. And suddenly, they have to stop. Look around, rethink everything. That's what happened when your energy left. You didn't collapse, you just stepped away. And that absence, that changed everything. Because energy is felt, even by those who pretend not to notice, even by the avoidant, even by the emotionally unavailable. They may not process feelings like you do. They may not articulate their emotions or handle closeness well, but they are not immune to energy, especially the kind that used to be consistent, especially yours. You were always there. That was your role. You checked in, you reassured. You carried the weight of every unspoken thing they wouldn't express. You filled in the gaps. You reached out first. And they expected that to continue. Not because they were cruel, but because they were comfortable. But comfort turns into confusion real fast when you stop moving in your usual pattern. And that's the moment they started noticing everything. They notice your silence, not because it's loud, but because it doesn't seek, it doesn't explain, it doesn't reach out with a shaky hand, hoping for a response. It just exists, confident, detached, grounded, the energy of someone who's not punishing, not manipulating, but simply no longer available for imbalance. That's what throws them off. Because they were counting on your attachment. They were counting on your loyalty. They were counting on the fact that you always came back. But this time, your stillness became the disruption, and suddenly they had to question what they once took for granted. Why haven't they texted? Why do I feel like something's missing? Have they moved on? And that right there, uncertainty, is the same thing they once triggered in you. Now, they're the one pacing, wondering, overthinking, checking your profile, playing it cool, but not feeling cool inside. But let's be clear, you didn't do it for a reaction. That's not who you are. You didn't pull your energy back to manipulate them. You did it to reclaim yourself. You did it because giving and giving and giving was eating away at your soul. You did it because the cost of staying emotionally available to someone who couldn't meet you halfway became too high. And once you made that decision, your frequency changed, your vibration shifted, and that couldn't be ignored. This is the part they don't teach you. Sometimes the most attractive version of you is the one who's done explaining, the one who walks with peace, the one who doesn't chase, doesn't push, doesn't beg, the one who becomes a mystery again, not because you're playing games, but because you've evolved beyond the version of yourself that needed to be understood. And that's what they felt when your energy pulled back. A vacuum, an echo, a haunting awareness that the bridge they always assumed would be there is now gone, and they don't know how to rebuild it. But now, here's your challenge. Don't go back just because they felt the shift. That's not the reward. That's the reflection. They're not returning because you became more lovable. You were always lovable. They're returning because they lost access to the part of you they assumed they owned. So ask yourself, do you want to rebuild the bridge, or were you meant to cross over and never look back? Say it in the comments if you know this truth now. They felt my energy shift. Let that be your anthem, your proof, your quiet power. Because your energy isn't just something they miss. It's something they now realize was keeping the entire connection alive. Stay with me, because next we're about to talk about the version of you that grew in the dark and how that growth became the one thing they couldn't ignore. Number 6, your growth became the thing they couldn't ignore. They didn't return because you begged louder. They returned because you outgrew the version of yourself that used to beg. Let's speak the truth most people don't want to admit. They didn't start missing you when you were hurting. They didn't feel the loss when you were texting, explaining, holding the emotional weight of the relationship on your back. No, they felt it the moment you stopped needing them, the moment your identity no longer wrapped itself around their absence, the moment you grew in ways that made you unrecognizable to their old patterns. And that's the thing with growth. It's quiet at first. It's not loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or big social media posts. It starts in the small moments, the moment you delete the draft you almost sent, the moment you put the phone down instead of checking their profile, the moment you realize your peace is louder than their silence. That's when your growth begins, not for revenge, not for show, but for you. And slowly, everything changes. You start waking up differently. At first, it still aches, but it doesn't control you anymore. You eat better. You breathe deeper. You start laughing again, not at anything special, but because your body finally remembers how to. You start doing things that have nothing to do with them. You read. You go out. You fall in love with the quiet again. You realize that their absence didn't break you. It revealed you. And guess what? They feel that. Not because you told them, but because energy doesn't lie. You no longer carry that aching need in your voice. You don't respond the same way. You're no longer performing emotional CPR on a connection that flatlined months ago. You're not waiting. You're not watching. You're not available in the way they remember. That's what they notice. See, they didn't expect you to grow. They expected you to wait, to stall, to pause your healing like a paused movie, hoping they'd hit play again. But you didn't. You kept going, even when it hurt, even when it didn't feel like progress. You evolved in the dark, and that's the kind of transformation no one sees coming. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a forest after a wildfire. The trees are scorched. Everything looks dead. But underneath the ash, life is happening, quietly, stronger than before, roots pushing deeper, the ground becoming richer. Then one day, new growth breaks through. And it's not the same as before. It's wilder, it's tougher, it's more alive than it ever was. That's you. They didn't come back because they missed who you were. They came back because who you've become suddenly makes them realize what they no longer have access to. And that version of you, the one who smiles without needing approval, who lives without waiting on a text, who speaks without shrinking, that version is powerful, uncomfortable for them, magnetic, unavailable to their old games. And it rattles them, because now they're the ones who feel behind. Now they're the ones who sense the distance, and it's not physical, it's spiritual, it's energetic, it's emotional. It's the distance between someone still stuck in cycles and someone who broke free, and they can't unfeel that. No matter how much they want things to go back to how they were, they can't, because you're no longer the version of you who tolerated emotional crumbs. You're not the person who found identity in their inconsistency. You're not the one who stayed soft in the face of disrespect, hoping it would be enough to make them stay. You're the one who left, even if you stayed silent. You're the one who chose growth, even if it meant grief. You're the one who finally said, "I'm done bleeding for someone who never brought bandages." And that growth, it doesn't beg, it doesn't prove, it doesn't need closure. It becomes closure. So let me say this clearly. You didn't grow so they'd come back. You grew because staying the same was killing you. You grew because your spirit got tired of shrinking. You grew because there was a voice inside you, small at first, whispering, "You deserve more," and you listened. That's where the power came from. Not from rage, not from revenge, but from alignment. That's why they returned, because they felt the shift. They noticed the silence, but stayed because of the strength. They realized you were no longer orbiting them. You had your own gravity now. And that kind of growth, that scares people who only know how to love you small. But this isn't the part where you shrink again. This is where you ask yourself, do I really want to go back to who I was just to fit their comfort zone again? Because the truth is, your growth will cost you people who preferred you broken. It will cost you the connection that only survived because you overfunctioned. But it will return something far more valuable, you. So when they come back, don't just ask, do they still want me? Ask, do I still want them in this new chapter? Because your story isn't about proving they were wrong to leave. It's about proving to yourself that you were right to evolve. Say it with me in the comments if you felt that transformation. I outgrew who I was. Let it echo. Let it stand. Let it be your truth. Because the moment you stopped trying to be enough for them was the moment you finally became more than enough for you. Stay with me, because next we're going to talk about the return itself. Why it's not your prize, not your proof, but simply a mirror reflecting how far you've come, and how now the power to choose is yours. Number 7. Their return isn't the prize, your power is. The real win wasn't that they came back. The real win was that you didn't need them to. Let's sit with this truth, my friends. They came back. Sure, they texted. Maybe they called. Maybe they popped up in your DMs, acting like nothing happened, or with that half-baked, just thinking of you message you used to live for. But let's not get it twisted. Them coming back isn't the victory. That's not your trophy. That's not the moment you finally prove you were worthy all along. That's just a symptom, a ripple, a result of the real thing that happened beneath the surface. You reclaimed your power. Because back then, their attention was your oxygen. Their absence felt like suffocation. You stayed up refreshing screens, rereading conversations, praying the universe would send you a sign, just one, that they still cared, that you still mattered, that it wasn't all in your head. You were starving for a breadcrumb of reassurance. That's who you were. And you thought, if they come back, everything will finally feel okay. But now that they're here again, you've changed. Something's different. You don't feel the rush. You don't feel the pull. You don't feel the urge to pour your soul into a reply, hoping they'll finally get it. Because the version of you that once clung to the idea of being chosen doesn't need to be chosen anymore. Let me put it like this. They didn't return because you waited. They returned because you walked away from the waiting. You stopped orbiting them emotionally. You stopped feeding the pattern. You stopped making them the center of a story that was meant to be about your healing. And that shift, that's what called them back. Not your desperation, not your heartbreak, not your texts at 2 a.m. Your evolution whispered to them. It didn't scream. It didn't chase. It just echoed, I'm not there anymore. And suddenly they felt it. But hear me, this isn't your reward. Because if their presence is the prize, then your healing is a transaction. And that's not growth, that's negotiation. That's still waiting for someone else to validate the journey you took through hell just to find yourself again. And you don't owe that journey to anyone. You don't need their return to prove your worth. You already proved it when you stopped settling for silence, for inconsistency, for love that only showed up when it was convenient. You want a metaphor? Let's go there. Imagine you were lost in a maze, and for a long time you followed their voice, thinking it would lead you out. Every echo felt like direction, every breadcrumb felt like progress. But it wasn't. It was a loop, and you got tired. You sat down, you cried. Then one day you stopped listening to their voice and started listening to your own. And that voice, it led you out. Now, as you're walking in open air again, breathing deeper, clearer, more freely, they show up at the exit. But here's the thing. You already made it out on your own. Their appearance isn't the escape. You were. That's your power. And they can feel it. They feel the difference. The calm in your tone. The way you're not rushing to prove anything. The way your eyes don't flicker with doubt. You're not the same. And they know it. That's why they're nervous. That's why they test the waters with soft touches, with vague messages, because they're unsure if they still have a hold on you. Spoiler alert, they don't. Not like before, because you're no longer looking for rescue. You became the rescue. And let's talk about that moment when they say, "I miss you." That moment you used to fantasize about. It finally happens. And for a second, your heart stirs. It remembers, but it also knows. Knows the nights you waited, the tears you swallowed, the days you begged the universe for clarity while they gave you confusion. Your soul remembers what it cost to stay. And now, you don't need to hold on to that "I miss you" like it's water in a drought, because you're no longer thirsty for it. What you're thirsty for now is peace, wholeness, depth, the kind of connection that doesn't require you to earn love with self-abandonment. And maybe they mean it. Maybe they really do miss you. But that's not the question anymore. The question is, do you miss the version of yourself that had to shrink to be loved by them? Do you miss the emotional high-wire act of managing their discomfort while ignoring your own needs? Do you miss walking on eggshells while calling it love? No, you don't. Not really. You might miss the idea of them, the hope, the potential, but you don't miss who you had to be just to keep them around. That's growth. That's the shift. So when they come back, and they will, because energy speaks louder than memory, don't look at it like you won. Look at it for what it is, a mirror, a reflection of how far you've come. Because now the choice is yours, not theirs, not anymore. You get to decide if their presence aligns with your peace. You get to decide if they're worthy of access to the new you, the healed, grounded, wise version of you that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't tolerate confusion in the name of connection. Say this with me in the comments if it hit your soul. I am the prize. Say it not to be cocky, but to be clear. Clear with yourself. Clear with the world. Because when you finally know that, when you feel it in your bones, you don't just wait for people to return. You evaluate who gets to stay. And that's power. Quiet, unshakable, real. So, here's the bottom line. They didn't come back for who you were. They came back because of who you became. Your growth was the game changer. If this message hit home, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe and drop "I've evolved" in the comments to claim your power.